Shaka Zulu, an evil genocidal maniac or one of Africa's greatest men. No matter where you stand, you can't deny that he was an African king that came from nothing and spilled blood until he had everything.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
From today's point of view, Shaka Zulu is a bad man. Now, whether that's the bad means good or the bad means actually bad type of bad, that's up to you. I mean, how do you see other conquerors? Napoleon Bonaparte, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great? I like to put it this way: if the Avengers existed, they would be taking all of them down. And if Thanos and Madara existed, they would be proud of all of them. But regardless of all that, there can be no doubt that Shaka Zulu was also a
Busted.
Bastard.
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 Nah, literally, in 1787, his father, Senzangakona, impregnated a woman he wasn't married to, Nandi Bibi. At the time, pregnancy out of wedlock was kind of a big deal, and so Nandi's tribe, the Mlongo, told Senzangakona's tribe, the Zulu, that since his pullout game was so terrible and their girl was pregnant now, they kind of declared war against the Zulu.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
War was problematic since the Zulu only had about 1,500 people at the time and weren't feeling like going to war with Senzangakona's premature nut. And so the Mlongo tribe was like, hey, we're nothing if not understanding, bro, but if you can give us 55 cows for the pleasure of raw dogging our dear Nandi, we're all fair and square. Which I know, pretty expensive if you ask me. I'm pretty sure there are people who charge less for bareback. So Senzangakona paid Nandi's tribe 55 cows. But since he actually did love Nandi, she and her son Shaka ended up living with Senzangakona, which once and for all proves that love has a price. 55 cows. Baby, I got a birthday present for you. But as relationships built on cows tend to go, this one didn't last too long. And in fact, it deteriorated so badly that Nandi decided that it's every woman and her cows for herself. And she took her 55 dairy queens and left the village, but left her son, Shaka, behind with Senzangakona. Now, Shaka staying with his father was a problem because Senzangakona had other legitimate children, and Shaka Snow was kind of a threat to the other legitimate children's whole Game of Thrones situation. So while young Shaka was just a boy, 7-something years young, he was already constantly under threat of assassination attempts, abuse, forced famine, always at death's door, courtesy of those who wanted to make sure this illegitimate bastard son does not end up on the throne. So eventually his mother Nandi came back to rescue her son, which actually meant taking him away from the region entirely to live with a new tribe further away, the Mitetwa tribe, led by a man named Dingis Vayo, where Shaka Zulu then grew from a boy who knew nothing but violence into a man who knew nothing but violence. Except that now the student had become the master. Shaka Zulu had mastered the art of violence and now wielded it to his advantage. And at this point, you have to know that all these tribes at the time in the region, all of them, they weren't exactly warriors, but rather herdsmen. Like, disputes were settled with cow exchanges rather than war. And when things couldn't be settled this way, battle between clans was not done for the sake of murdering and killing. It was more like a storm the yard type of face-off situation, you get me? Once you showed up your enemy in an almost ceremonial show of force, the other side retreated. No need to fight when you know you're gonna lose, and better to retreat with no risk of being annihilated. No one was chasing down anybody for the kill in these parts until enter now grown man Shaka Zulu was chasing people down like he was LeBron in 2009. Shaka Zulu had grown from an abused boy into an ambitious, cruel man, as they so often do, and he saw no point in this pretend warfare that his people had practiced, so he turned the tribe's warfare from Stomp the Yard battles into Stomp like it's American History X. Not only did he make battles bloody and deadly, no, he also changed the nature of combat entirely. Before Shaka Zulu, two tribes facing off was basically two semi-organized mobs facing each other, throwing a couple of spears at the other side, spears that were created with hunting in mind, less for manslaughter. But Shaka Zulu, this guy, introduced close combat battles because he seriously was on his Joker thing.
Do you want to know why I use a knife? Guns are too quick. You can't savor all the little emotions.
Shaka Zulu favored short spears as opposed to the long-range throwing hunting spears, and with it, Shaka introduced a new plan of attack, which was pretty straightforward.
We need a plan of attack!
I have a plan. Attack.
While rushing and attacking was the gist of it, it was a little more sophisticated than that, and to be precise, it was called the bullhorn formation. Let me explain with an example. Imagine a bunch of kids throwing snowballs at each other, and that's the only way of snowball combat they know. Every snowball fight, both sides are throwing snowballs at the other side, and then suddenly this one kid who seemingly had a little bit too much snow, if you know what I mean, this one kid starts raging and rushes the other group of kids, tackling them and rubbing their face in the ice until they bleed and die. That was Shaka Zulu and his people, except the rushing group was just one part of the bullhorn formation. The bull's chest, the two bull horns to either side, were charging in to flank the enemy, and the bull's hind was the backup, hanging back until needed to reinforce and support either the chest or the horns in battle. Now you might say that coming up with a pincer movement around 1810 isn't exactly all that amazing when in many parts of the world tactics like this had literally been around for ages, but think about it this way. Fire and wheels have existed for ages, but I damn sure could not create either, nor do I trust myself to know a single edible mushroom in the wild, and just sometimes some things invented while isolated from the rest of the world are still impressive, and the fact is that in this part of the world, Shaka changed the game. So when his father died and one of his half-brothers ascended to the throne, Shaka finally saw a window of opportunity to get revenge on the family that exiled him. More than that, he saw an opportunity to take the Zulu throne, which he believed was rightfully his, aka he wanted to become Shaka Zulu. So with the support of the Mtetwa clan that had become his home and their leader Dingiswayo, Shaka and his men attacked and killed Shaka's brother. But still, the throne wasn't theirs, because a man named Zwide, leader of the Ndwandwe clan, seized the confusion of the battle, and while the Mtetwa and Zulu battled, and while Shaka killed his brother and claimed his title of Zulu, Zwide actually took the Zulu lands and throne, and Zwide killed Dingiswayo, which meant Shaka somehow won the battle but lost the war. Yet now with Dingiswayo dead, Shaka found himself the head of his adopted Mtetwa clan, which he simply renamed into the Zulu, finally making him Shaka Zulu. But he was only getting started, and I feel like you're just only getting confused with these names, because I'm even getting confused as I'm telling you. So let me break down the clans and these confusing names real quick, okay? Shaka was the bastard son of this man, Senzangakona, chief of the Zulu, who also had this legitimate son, who for the sake of simplicity we shall call Senzangakona Jr. Shaka's mother, Nandi, was from this clan, Mlongo. Shaka was chased out of the Zulu clan, and him and his mother left for Shaka to grow up within the Mtetwa clan led by Dingiswayo. After his father's death, Shaka killed the new Zulu king, Senzangakona Jr., and now he was Shaka Zulu, but his kingdom and lands during the battle were actually taken by a third party, Zwide, leader of the Ndwandwe clan, who killed Dingiswayo, who had helped Shaka Zulu in the war, meaning Shaka now became leader of the Mtetwe clan, which he renamed into the Zulu clan. I'm not sure if that made it clearer, but here we are. So now Zwide and his Ndwandwe were at war with Shaka and his newly formed Zulu. And don't forget, Shaka was still the military mastermind of the era, of the region. So with his battle tactics, he had no problems quickly absorbing other tribes into his new Zulu nation until Shaka was in charge of thousands of men, thousands of herdsmen who he trained into an efficient army using his bullhorn tactics, turning them into a conquering machine. And just so you know what kind of army we're talking about here, any of Shaka's men who didn't prove themselves in battle, in blood, were not allowed to get a wife, aka virgin life forever, which that will light a fire under anybody's ass. So the Shaka Zulu army was running on that thirst energy and annihilating everybody. Like, Shaka Zulu and his army were on some real Aztec discipline too. Like, you know how it's said that the Aztec armies never stepped backwards in battle? Similarly, any of Shaka Zulu's men who had wounds on their backs were executed after the battle for their cowardice, and any individual regiment that lost in battle was punished with their wives and children being beaten to death back home. Like, bruh.
It's a little bit harsh.
Shaka Zulu had no chill, and the man literally turned full-blown conqueror, which is to say that only lucky nearby tribes were absorbed into the Zulu tribes, while other tribes were just entirely annihilated. This went on for about 15 years, in which time Shaka Zulu grew his territory from 10 square miles into 200,000 square miles, inhabiting a Zulu nation that now consisted of 250,000 people, with 50,000 warriors bred in blood at Shaka Zulu's call, all for one ultimate mission: to reclaim Shaka's homeland from Zwide. And in 1818, Zwide's Ndwandwe finally faced the Zulu led by Shaka, and while Zwide and his army still had the numbers, they did not have Shaka's keen mind for battle. Shaka Zulu positioned his army on a hill and made the enemy warriors come to him, and he was like,
I have the high ground. You underestimate my power.
so Zwide and his men had to charge up the hill, which, if you're throwing spears momentum-wise, not a good idea. Zwide's men throwing and running uphill without formation, while Shaka Zulu's men were throwing and running downhill in formation, knowing what to do in close combat. The battle was one-sided, and the result was that on this day 7,500 of Shaka's enemies died, compared to only 2,000 of Shaka's own warriors. But still, the enemy was far from defeated, and so this war raged for another 18 months, with the two powerful tribes shedding blood until Shaka had one more stroke of genius that would end it all. Shaka Zulu engaged a large portion of the enemy army in battle, knowing it would leave their capital undefended. So Shaka and a portion of his elite warriors abandoned that battle and marched on the capital, singing Ndwandwe victory songs as they approached it. The Ndwandwe people in the capital thought that their army, their loved ones, were returning home victoriously. So all the women, all the children rushed to greet their husbands, to greet their fathers, but really rushed into the hands of the Zulu army that had fooled them and slaughtered them all. Shaka Zulu had won. And at this utter defeat, at this horrific annihilation of all the Ndwandwe people, their leader, Zwide, fled to save his own skin, which meant that Shaka Zulu could never kill him and officially claim the throne, which meant he had to resort to an alternative: Svida's mother. He trapped Svida's mom in a house with hyenas who ate her alive, and then he burnt the whole house down.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Now, in 1819, King Shaka Zulu was the unquestioned leader of the lands, free to lead his tribe to bigger, better things. Bigger, better things meant conquering every single other tribe. He turned the Zulu into an empire, and every other tribe was either killed by the Zulu, absorbed by the Zulu, or a refugee on the run from the Zulu. The problem was that those refugees, in turn, spread the Zulu violence they had experienced, spread that violence into other parts of the country while seeking refuge in these lands, seeking refuge by conquering them with the exact tactics they had learned while the Zulu sent them into seeking refuge by conquering their own lands. You get me? A cycle of violence, a cycle of conquering. And when it was all said and done, Shaka Zulu's rise to power, his creation of the Zulu Empire, and the bloody warfare he introduced to his land caused 2 million deaths over 15 years. But of course, the battle for territory amongst the African tribes and the expansion of the Zulu Empire was not the only thing going down in Africa at the time. There was also a little city you might have heard of, Cape Town, which some Europeans decided was theirs. To be precise, some Dutch people long ago came to Africa like,
"Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now."
And they just murdered the innocent natives and colonized the southern part of Africa. Meanwhile, though, a guy named Napoleon Bonaparte kind of did that colonizing within Europe, giving the Dutch a taste of their own medicine, taking over their country and telling them that they are officially French now. The Dutch didn't like that, so they told the British people, "Hey, remember how we stole a bunch of land over there in Africa? We don't want somebody else to steal it from us, because that would seem unfair after all the stealing we did. And because we like you more than this Napoleon Bonaparte, who's not even really royalty, because we're you British, you're royal, right? We want you to have our stolen land. What do you say?" So now Cape Town was a British colony, but when the British came, the Dutch people who had settled there and lived there and had no connection nor any interest in what was going down in Europe at the time, they were like,
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
they didn't want the British, and since, thanks to Napoleon, they also were not Dutch anymore, they decided to call themselves Boer, and decided that since they were born here, Africa was their homeland. So once again, Dutch people under a new name said,
I'm the captain now.
and so the Boer pushed into Zulu territory, colonizing them to escape the new colonizers that the original colonizers gave their colony to. That's a complicated sentence, but you get me. This obviously was a major problem for the Zulu, and maybe Shaka Zulu would have been able to lead a great resistance here, but we will never know, because the dude went and got himself killed. How? Well, it turns out he was a big mama's boy. To be fair though, that is absolutely understandable after Shaka and his mom got chased out of their home, and she was the one who literally saved his life, and they lived in a foreign tribe where for the longest time Shaka and his mother only had each other. So even after Shaka Zulu rose to power, his mother was his world, and when she died, that world ended, and his grief was epic. For a year, Shaka Zulu decreed that no crops were to be planted and no milk was to be collected, which was a problem since crops and milk were like the foundation of all the Zulu food. Also, for a year, any woman that was pregnant, aka dared to attempt to claim the title of mother, was to be executed along with her husband. And to make sure everybody feels his pain, Shaka Zulu also killed 7,000 people who were not grieving his mother enough, a woman they likely never met. And just to really drive that point home, He also killed hundreds of cows so that their calves would know what it's like to not have a mother. And so, as his grief turned into madness, Shaka Zulu was killed by one of his brothers. Then, one of the two assassin brothers that killed him, one of the two killed the other assassin brother to rule alone. And then that now solely rolling assassin brother was like, hey, I know a thing or two about murdering, so let me show these boors what's what. And that assassin brother, who now was in charge, took 10,000 Zulu warriors to Bullhorn, a Boer settlement, except it turns out that you can't bullhorn a bunch of wagons that are set up in a circle and loaded with guns. In fact, when you charge into that, you find yourself in a serious kill zone. A kill zone that became known as the Battle of the Bloody River, where 3,000 of the attacking Zulu were killed and only 3 Boer were even injured. So yeah, the Zulu resistance wasn't off to the best start, and from there the new Zulu leader resorted to whatever was necessary to protect his people and their land from the infinite firepower that was provided courtesy of the financial backing of Europe's colonization. In other words, the Zulu were bullied to sign peace treaties and to trade land by foreign invaders who had no claim, absolutely no claim to any of it. And even so, the Zulus somehow seemed to manage coexisting with the European invaders, and maybe things could have turned out alright. But then, the British found diamond mines in Zulu land, aka screw any treaty or trade agreement we had, because that's only temporary, but diamonds are forever. So now there were valuable diamonds on the line, and the greedy British had a whole new prospect. And so I really only wanted to do a video on Shaka Zulu and not on the colonization nor the diamond trade, because that's a whole beast in and of itself. A story that didn't just start nor end with the Zulu nor the diamond. So if you want more on how Europeans stole part of Africa and the dark chapter of history that was and continues to be colonization, then let me know in the comments. And who knows, maybe I'll do a series on colonization, a deep dive into African history some more, but that's for you to decide in the comments below. And do know that if you did enjoy this video, there's a subscribe thing, there's a like thing, there's all that, right? But there's also a YouTube membership. You can become a YouTube member now. You get 30 exclusive videos. You get all my artwork to download and keep. You get a reply to every single comment. You get a live stream every weekend. You get all my scripts. You get other stuff. But there's a link in the description if you're interested in this. That's a joining link. You click that. You see the tiers, you see the benefits you get, and you can choose to become a member here on YouTube. At the end of the day, by becoming a member on YouTube, you support this form of education, which is very views dependent, and YouTube doesn't push every video the same. So by becoming a member, you're keeping this channel alive, and you will be helping out a lot. Your choice. Click the link in the description. Either way, you watch this video, and you could have been anywhere in the world, but you were here with me, and I do appreciate that.